Go and hit record in three, two. Welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Stories, where we get to interview authors from all over the world. If you listen to this podcast, most likely you have a business that you are starting or growing. And in order for you to grow a business the right way, you have to understand taxes to a high level, at least a basic level, even. And so this is perfect because I'm meeting with my accountant later today to talk about taxes. And that's why this is absolutely perfect timing. Where the book we're going over is called U.S. Taxes for Worldly Americans. And this is all about the traveling expert's guide to living, working, and staying tax compliant abroad. With the author today is Olivier Wagner. Thanks so much for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get into the genesis of this book. It seems like it's resonating very well with an audience on Amazon. 304 reviews, all pretty much 5 stars. So it's working out really well and on Amazon, and people probably are just drawn to it because there are so many things you're teaching within the book that's beneficial for every entrepreneur. So what made you want to write it? And please give us a little bit of your background.
Right. So the 2024 edition just came out. So any updates will be in the book if you buy it now. Well, I worked at Moody's, the credit rating agency in New York. I moved to Montreal in 2011. And that's when I started 1040 Abroad. I wanted to prepare tax returns for Americans who live overseas. And as for myself, I wanted to be able to work for myself, be locational independent. And we're talking about 10 years before COVID-19. Back then, the way to work remotely was to work for yourself. And yeah, so in this book, I discuss the various aspects of being an American who live overseas. Unlike other developed countries, the US taxes their citizens wherever they live, but there are various ways to not have to pay tax. And right, one of them is the foreign tax credit, which I don't know if you want to get, if it's too early to get too technical, but
Yeah, well, we'll get that. We'll get to the takeaways there, but you were able to see it firsthand that while you were still, you said you lived in New York, went to Montreal, then now I believe you're overseas nonstop. Is that right?
yes, I'm in Mexico right now.
Got it. And so this is for people who are citizens of the United States and they travel abroad, right? So they're not going to actually to establish a house or any type of location. This is for individuals who travel abroad. Is that right?
Right. I mean, I have both types of clients. I have people who move overseas and start a new life in Canada, France, Germany, and they just start a new life. They're part of society. They pay income tax there. They get a foreign tax credit. They pay social security there. And then I think what you're more interested in is like the digital nomad dimension. People who leave the US without necessarily entering the tax system of another country,
Yes.
who would rely heavily on the foreign income exclusion, which allows them to exclude wages and self-employment income without necessarily having to pay tax to another country. And then there's the structure where you create a foreign corporation, um, and you're your own employee. You don't have to pay social security tax as a result of that.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, I'm familiar with certain aspects of the tax code, but all of this is in there. I don't know how easy it is to find, but if you bring this up to your accountant, does the typical accountant know this system, or is this something that's sort of outside their reach, if you will?
Well, I mean, accountancy that's niche do, but the tax solutions that work for Americans who live in the US and Americans who live outside the US are very different. So if you live in the US and you start following what I just described, that would be pretty close to fraud because that foreign corporation, you're in the US, you're working for that corporation, you're passing contracts for that corporation. The corporation would be engaged in a US trade or business, have a permanent establishment in the US. It would have to pay US income tax in its own right. Whereas if you're an American and you live overseas, then the foreign corporation is operating overseas and it doesn't have to to pay income tax to the US. You will still attach Form 5471 with your own tax return, but that will be you filing it, not the corporation. Conversely, people in the US use S corps. If you
S
create,
corps, S corps.
yes, yes,
Yes, yes, that's what I have. I have an S corp.
yeah, an S corp is a great solution for Americans who live in the US. It's not nearly as good for those who live outside the US.
Got it.
So the premise of an S corp is that some of your income will be wages and you'll pay Social Security on that, and some of your income will be business income and you won't have to pay Social Security tax on that. And then there's various filing requirements from 1120S W2. Was if you're overseas, not only can you not pay any Social Security tax at all with the foreign corporation, but you rely on that foreign income exclusion where you make the case that your income is wages to be able to exclude it for income tax purposes. And the S corp is based on the premise that some of the income is business income. The business income cannot be excluded with the foreign income exclusion. So I was getting a little too technical here, but to answer your question,
Yeah. Oh, I would
yes,
think that, I mean,
to answer your question, there's essentially two types of accounts. Well, there's more than two types, but some accountants will have their client based in the US and they will be very familiar with the solutions that works for Americans living in the US, and others like me will have clients overseas and will be familiar with the solutions for those who live overseas. And these two solutions, these two structures are not the same.
so that I'm sure you're in a certain bracket of understanding of the tax code. The average person listening most likely doesn't understand this stuff. So if you could keep it very basic for me to even understand, but also it's probably
Right.
difficult because you're so high level. But what I would think is the average person listening is might have a company in the United States, but I've seen them want to maybe travel to Mexico or Singapore or China for 3 months or 4 months. Or even I went to Italy for 3 months whenever I was in school in 2005. They have the ability, if they have an online business, to go and do that. So, what would be the steps required, and what would you say to look out for, or how to actually set it up so you win big time when it comes to taxes?
Well, if you just go overseas for 3 or 5 months, there's not that much you can change.
Oh, okay.
If you if you're going to be outside of the US for 12 months and you spend at least 330 days in a foreign country during these 12 months, that leaves you 35 days to spend in the US, then that can make a huge difference. You can exclude all of your income from income tax using the foreign income exclusion, the physical presence test. So,
Can you state those numbers again? So it is 300 and did you say
well,
330
it's
days?
330 days in any 12-month period. So we have a little bit of wiggle room there. It doesn't have to be a calendar year. It can be any 12-month period. The period going from June 21st, year one, to June 20th, year two, is a 12-month period. So if you spend 330 days in a 12-month period, then you can exclude $126,000 of earned income, either wages or self-employment income.
Got it. Okay. Is there a better country to go to than any other country? I've heard of many individuals go to Puerto Rico or like I said, Singapore. So have you noticed, is there any benefit to go to one as compared to another?
Well, if we're talking about people traveling using the physical presence test, they typically stay there as tourists or they are digital nomad visa these days, and and then they wouldn't enter the tax system of that host country. So then, it's a personal preference. Uh,
Got it.
Puerto, Puerto Rico has a preferential tax treatment, which doesn't only apply to earned income, it applies to investment income as well. But you need to become an actual resident of Puerto Rico. So it's more involving, but there's more rewards, but you need to move there permanently, essentially. Was you can be a digital nomad, go backpacking, be in a country for 2 weeks, in another one for 3 months, another one for 2 months, and qualify for the physical presence test.
Hmm. So you're a certified public accountant, is that right?
Yes, I'm a CPA with New Hampshire and an annual agent with the IRS.
And you say what with the IRS?
Annual agent.
Wow, interesting. Okay, very nice. No wonder you know this stuff so well.
That's what I do. I've been doing it for 10 years now.
That's awesome. Okay. All right. So, now do you coach people on how to do this? What's your business like?
I mostly prepare tax returns. I have these 20-minute calls to have an high-level conversation with my prospective clients, and then I would prepare their tax returns. That's 80% of my business. But we can also schedule a 1 hour call where we can delve more into the specifics of what I discussed and do more of tax planning as opposed to mere compliance.
Got it. So, what do you see your clients do? I guess you could say in the wrong fashion over and over. Is there a certain trend that they're, I guess, is there a certain common mistake that people are making? Us entrepreneurs, maybe we're doing 1 to 5 million. Is there any common mistake that's being made that you're catching?
All right, the beginner's mistake are one, behaving as if they were still in the US, having a structure that would have made sense if they were still in the US. Beginner's mistake number two is being in a situation in which they can only rely on the physical presence test and not keep track of their days. Like I said, 330 days in a foreign country gives you 35 days to spend in the US. If you spend 40 days in the US, then all of your income would be taxed. So
Yeah.
you're
So
good.
a few days really make a difference. It's unbelievable.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you can have three legs to stand on: the foreign tax credit, which requires you to pay tax to a foreign country, the foreign income exclusion with the bona fide residence test, where you need to be an actual resident of that foreign country, and the physical presence test. But people are more in that digital nomads sphere who travel, who don't really establish ties with the foreign country, can only rely on the physical presence test. And at that point, counting the days is very important. So that's the two beginners' mistake.
Very nice.
More advanced mistakes would be once you understand that you need to have a foreign corporation to not pay Social Security, you need to pay yourself wages to not only use the foreign income exclusion, but to avoid some nasty rules called subpart F and guilty income rules, whereby you would be taxed personally on income that stays inside the corporation. So they can have the right structure, but not pay themselves wages as they should. And then they will come back to me the next year and have me prepare the tax return. They'll be like, you have tax owing, you have subpart F, guilty income. And they'll be like, what's that? What can I do about that? Well, you should have paid yourself wages as we discussed. Now it's a little late to do something. I cannot change the past. So, well, so that's the two key mistakes plus the one advanced mistake that I see.
Nice. So you in chapter one, you have I guess a subchapter on mitigating travel expenses. I think that would be something that draws the curiosity of our audience. So what is that all about?
Mitigating travel expenses. Oh, it's been a while. Um, can you give me a title of that chapter or something?
Chapter one is moving, living, and working abroad, and then the subchapter is mitigating travel expenses on page 10 of your book. And so I'm thinking to myself, maybe he has some tricks of the trade that will help us slow down the travel expenses. And there's probably some things that you do even without even knowing it. So mitigating travel expenses within the book. I didn't know if there's anything we could share on this podcast that could be beneficial.
I don't remember exactly what I put in the book, but um, I mean, for starters, churn the credit card. Like you have these airlines that partner with the banks and they give you
This is what I've been hearing. Points. I better start using American Express points, and I'm not doing it in the same fashion that some of my mentors are doing. And that is a great takeaway.
Yes, and if you just use your credit card, you get 1 mile per dollar spent, etc. It doesn't help the cause all that much. But if you have the sign-up bonus, they say you spend $5,000 within 3 months, we'll give you $50,000. You open the card, you get the $50,000, and then you can close the card and then open the same card again in 3 years or something like that, or use other cards. I mean, it used to work very well. It used to be that there was this welcome bonus without any spending requirement. You just needed to post a transaction. So yeah, for starters, get the sign up bonus. I mean, as long as you have a mailing address in the US, etc., at some point it can become too logistically complicated. But yes, get the sign up bonus,
You
churn the
made me
credit
think
card.
I need to do that. I need, and I've been saying it over and over, but because of this podcast, I'm going to speak it into existence. I'm going to start to adhere to some of those using points more because it is a game changer. So if you're out there listening, guys, this is such a, a classical subject within our mastermind. So I like what you're saying here.
Yeah, and there's a forum where there are people who are really obsessed by these things who discuss all the minutiae. It's called Flyer Talk.
What's it called?
Flyer Talk? Flyer like flying and talk like talking. Flyer Talk.
Fire talk. Got it.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. So
Never
so
heard that.
there's right, and people go crazy, maybe a little bit too much on the various ways to get status match, manufactured spending. Because like you might have that welcome bonus, you need to spend $5,000, but you might be fiscally responsible and you don't necessarily want to spend $5,000. So then there's like these gimmicks to buy money orders or gift cards, things that are equivalent to cash, but that would be posted as purchases. Oh, it used to be that American Express, was trying to keep their traveler checks alive. So you will go to an American Express travel agency, buy traveler's checks with your American Express card. It will post as purchase on your credit card. You will get the points, the welcome bonus, and then you will have a traveler's check that you could make payable to yourself, and just cash it, and then use the proceeds to pay off your credit card. Right, Flyer Talk. You'll see plenty of gimmicks like that on that website. And then, if you go to Southeast Asia, Vietnam, in Europe, Albania, the Balkans, of these countries that are not part of the EU, Serbia, Montenegro, things are so much cheaper over there. So if you want to stay there, and the weather's pretty nice too. If you stay there long term, that will be, much cheaper than if you were to go to Germany or even Mexico is getting more expensive because of what we're talking, partially because they were open during COVID-19, so they really gained a lot of digital nomads to boost their economy during COVID-19. But since then, there's some sort of gentrification going on. And if you want to have an American lifestyle in Mexico now, it's not as cheap as it used to be. And it's so close to the US that yeah, they really gained on that, but they were not as cheap. They're not as cheap as they used to be.
Mm. So were you born in France?
Yes.
Yes. Yep. And so did you go from France to New York, then to Montreal, and now you're everywhere, it sounds like.
Yes, yes, yes. I was in Montreal until, well, from 2011 to 2015, and I really lived this digital nomad lifestyle from 2015 to
The
2018.
nomad
And
lifestyle. So you're still servicing clients all over the world basically with this nomad lifestyle.
yes, absolutely.
That's good. So what drew you to it? Was it your parents? Did you just experience it and never look back? And I mean,
Well, there's a
I preach it all the time to build an online business, and you figured it out. So, what really drew you to it? Is it just a freedom aspect, or you're just an adventure seeker through and through?
um I mean, the two are pretty connected. I never really felt French, so I always had these attraction to the foreign and elsewhere. And when I first moved to New York, even though I was an employee, I felt a lot of freedom in when I worked and just how I conduct my life compared to France and a lot less bureaucracy, pessimism, etc. But as the financial crisis of 2008 came about, the HR policies got worse, and I longed working for myself, working remotely, working online. And based on my skill set, I saw preparing tax returns to be the best match.
Got it. Got it. So, it was becoming more apparent that you could build your business online. You weren't married to any one location. And the fact that you probably just love seeing the world, right? And I would assume that probably inspires and motivates people to kind of follow in your footsteps. Maybe you've seen clients do what you do. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And so I always talk about this one experience with my adventure of taking my Jeep Wrangler and driving it around the United States. And I remember
Okay.
sitting in the Yellowstone National Park in the middle of the night. It was 4 in the morning and nobody was around. I didn't see cars for hours. And I was listening to my Tom Petty, and it just brought tears to my eyes because I was so happy to do it because I was living my dream. Do you have any moments like that while you were out there traveling the world, and maybe something that stands out as sort of a defining moment or something you never want to forget?
Well, for one thing, I was doing cyclotouring, so it's a little similar to what you described, except you're on your bike. And
Cycle touring? Cycle touring?
yes,
Nice.
um, if you want to check out the website about that, there's crazyguy.com. With
That's your
and the,
website?
no, it's not my website, even though I
Oh,
posted a journal there.
got
But
it.
it's a website about cyclotouring. So you like put your tent and your camping gear on your bike. You will bike, and in the afternoon you will find a place to camp, and then you can find spots in the middle of nature, as you described, which feels very relaxing and reinvigorating. And then the leap of faith when I bought a one-way plane tickets to Bangkok and spent a month in Chiang Mai after that. I really everything felt new, going to the night market, eating the insects, grilled insects as a snack, these sort of things. That was very that was the defining moment, and it was the first time I've been to Asia, and I left Canada, starting my new life, figuring things out, figuring my business out. I was by myself from 2011 to 2015. That's when I first hired my first employee, and yeah, I was in Bangkok. I was overwhelmed. I was like, I had one client who was taking a lot of my time. I was like, if I need to service more clients, I need to hire someone. And I'm part of these mastermind groups where people have strategies and analyze their business. And for better or for worse, it wasn't exactly like that for me. I just service clients, I grew the business, and then I kind of figured things out as I went. Like whenever a problem showed up, I would find a solution as opposed to having a 5-year vision or something like that.
Was it a lonely experience? I think entrepreneurship is extremely lonely for many years. And so when you're traveling and you are by yourself, I would expect it to even be more of a lonely experience because I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you're kind of building your business from your apartment or from your house. That's one aspect of loneliness. But when you're out there on the road, I don't know. Did it ever sink in? You're like, oh wow, I'm really doing this. This is a solo entrepreneurship path. And did you A, love it because I grew to love it, and then B, did you meet anybody on the way?
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, I was working in an accounting firm in Montreal, partially to get the CPA designation before I moved to Thailand. So I was married, I had this job, and my wife was not supportive. So I left everything. I left Canada. I left my job. I
Wait, did you divorce your wife in Montreal?
Yes, yes,
Wow, you started over, huh? Oh my
absolutely, yeah.
God, it's a fresh start. You actually left everything. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So in that context, when you really don't know what you're doing, you have all these insecurities and you're in the middle of nowhere by yourself, that really is home. I mean, I went back to Toronto in 2018. I met a girl who's now my wife. We got married in 2020, and I'm very lucky that she embraced this lifestyle. We're in Mexico together. She supports me for my business, and I'm in much better place now. But as you figure things out, it is a lonely and scary place at times, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You're not really sure where what your revenue is going to be next month. And even if your business might feel stable from the outside, when you're inside, you don't have this contractual obligation from an employer. You always have these fears. So it's quite a journey. I don't know if you heard the expression jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down.
Yeah, I've heard that many times. Yeah, that's what we do, right? We will
Yes,
jump out of
exactly.
an airplane and build an airplane on the way down, is the way I always say it.
Yeah. Well, you start with wings and hopefully you get an airplane, but as long as you don't crash, whatever works.
Well, you bring up a very good point there, Olivier, and it's basically when you leave the ordinary world, whether it's when you're married or whether it's you're in that secure position, that job in Montreal, and you go somewhere where it's the unknown world, it's almost like you have to lose yourself to find yourself, right? It's almost like lots of you have to burn lots of you has to burn away. And Jordan Peterson, I don't know if you follow his teachings, but he's a clinical psychologist, and he
Oh
says that
yeah.
when you go out into this adventure, you'll realize that most of you, everything that you took for granted and all that is dead wood. And once you get rid of that dead wood of who you used to be, maybe there's a morsel left, right? There's just a little bit left, but it's healthy, it's solid, it can grow. And so you find out that most of you's not worth keeping, but there is some. And that is when you can really build the life of your dreams. So it seems like you realize that it was scary because you lost yourself, but that's when you found yourself. Am I right about that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
It's great. And so I think people out there who are about to do what you have done, right? Leave the ordinary world, complete the hero's journey or pursue the hero's journey and go out into the scary wilderness on their own. What would you advise to them? And then we're going to have one more question when it comes to setting up a lifestyle where they can do this frequently. So, what would you advise to those people out there listening?
Um, I mean, if you're doing it, it's there's something compelling you to do it. Like, all of the hardships, getting rid of your 35-hour job so that you have the freedom of working 60 hours and these sort of things. It's not something that most people are made for, and there's some personal reasons beyond um, the mere financial gains that drive people to do that. So just have faith, find people who share this perspective, and just keep on going. You will build your wings at some point. You It will not look like the way you anticipated. It never will, but you will find your way and
Yeah.
find a community.
You'll find a community, you'll find your way, but also, like you said, you might have an idea of what it's going to look like, but it's never going to look exactly like that. And it's great to like not be too married to a destination, because potentially that destination, the one that you're not thinking of, it might actually end up being way better than what you're thinking of. Am I right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So how can people do this um for the rest of their lives? I would assume, I mean, I have many people who are my virtual assistants and I have people who are my videographers. They're in different parts of the world. I have to figure out how to pay them. There's different systems. There are all kinds of things that I never even thought about. Like I can't just pay them through Stripe payment processor. We have to use Payoneer or something. So uh all of these things you're not thinking of, CRMs. What do you recommend for people to do this frequently, or as frequently as they dream of? Because I'm assuming you have clients all over the world, not just the United States. Is that right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes. When it comes to having people working for you, whether it's your own employees or whether you're still an employee and you're going the digital nomad route while being an employee, to be compliant, the two ways are one, to be self-employed. If you're self-employed, the burdens shifts from the employer to the independent contractor, right? So if you have someone in Albania, Serbia, or wherever they might be, as an employer, you would be required to pay, income tax, social security withholdings, etc. And you're not necessarily familiar with the laws of that place, and you probably don't want to spend time learning them. If they are an independent contractor, you just pay them, and it's up to them to be in compliance. Or to have them as an employee, now there's all these employer of record services. So you would pay a commission to an employer of record, which has some sort of base in that country and would put that person on their payroll and take care of all of the local obligations. So, I mean, for the payment itself, I use international wire transfers. These days, I bank with Mercury. Mercury is pretty good bank for the business side of things. If you have a US LLC, you want to open a bank account, that's one of the few that allows you to do it completely remotely. And on top of that, you can pass transactions, international wire transfers and the like on their website. Actually, I don't think they have branches, but yes, for the actual payment international wire transfer, but it doesn't take care of the compliance side. For that, either make them an independent contractor and then it's up to them to be compliant, or use the services of an employer of record.
Do you use any websites, programs that we're very accustomed to in the United States, whether it's Fiverr, Upwork? Do you have virtual assistants, or are you a solo entrepreneur? Do you have people who are on your team? What's that look like?
Yes, that's what I talked about. I was just like figuring things along the way. Um, no, I don't use any of that. At first, as I was traveling, I was posting job ads on Craigslist and I was interviewing people, getting them to work. I had a little bit of the prêt-à-manger mindset. So Pret-a-Manger is a food chain that started in the UK, and they have an interesting philosophy in that if they have a decent candidate, they will hire that person for 24 hours and then decide with the team whether that person would stay or not, as opposed to relying on a formal interview process and then hiring them for a longer period of time. And they pay them for these 24 hours. It's just that at the conclusion of the day, they get to decide whether there will be another day or not.
Wow.
So that's how I started. I had employees, well, they were traveling, but I had someone from Kyrgyzstan, from Montenegro, from Serbia, and as things evolved, I have a team in Serbia, and now all but one of my employees are in Serbia. So that makes things easier because I only have one country to comply with.
Beautiful. Yeah, because of time difference, right? It's so much nicer to have everybody in one area. Is that what you're saying?
Right, right, right. And
Yeah.
so when it comes to hiring, I use a Serbian website, hrlab.rs, which is a website by Serbian for Serbian. I mean, they have an English version of the website, but it's not Upwork, it's not even jobwack.eu is um, is a website that offers this kind of services for digital nomads who want to hire people in Eastern Europe. hrlabs.rs is really meant for Serbian who wants to hire Serbians locally, and you can go there and post a job for remote work. But that's not really the focus of the website. But that also means that you have a bigger reach. You have a larger percentage of the population that would follow that website as opposed to jobwack.eu.
So if someone were to pick up this book and maybe start to live the nomadic lifestyle and apply what you teach in the book, how long would it take someone for them to get everything ready? And I'm looking at chapter 2, and you have form 3520, form 5471. There are many forms and many processes in place for them to do it the right way and make sure that they're not going to get into any trouble, I guess. How long does it take the average person, you think, from zero to living the nomadic lifestyle and doing it the right way tax wise?
Right. I mean, you will start by either remaining an employee of your existing employer or being self-employed. You will build your business. If you're self-employed, you will pay self-employment tax. If you're an employee, your employer will take care of that. And you will grow your business. You will figure out ways to travel. You would find a rhythm that works for you. You would
A
find a
rhythm.
community. And at first, if you start out, you're self-employed, you make $50,000 or less, then it makes sense to pay self-employment tax. I mean, not only would you accrue Social Security benefits, but the alternative of filing Form 5471, of having a foreign corporation, there are costs associated with that. And at first, you will keep it simple, stupid. I think that there's an expression like that. And then once your net income is more than $50,000, then you can consider having a foreign corporation, stop paying Social Security, but having to file Form 5471 and paying yourself wages to offset the net income from your foreign corporation to yourself. So, it might take a year or two to get to that point, but at first, when you first move overseas, you should focus on other things than creating a foreign corporation.
Yeah, I guess you're saying that there are levels to this, right? And as time
Yes,
goes on, very much like with our business, we're very primitive early on, right? And as time goes on, I love how you bring up, you find your rhythm, right? There are certain flows, cadences to this whole entrepreneurship game. And as time goes on, you start to realize what works, what doesn't work for you. And so as time goes on, like you said, the way you play a game at $0 is different than 50,000 as compared to 500,000 as compared to 250 or to 2 million. So
right.
it's a growing game, and you have options based off of the level that you're at. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful. And so, guys, this is a very in-depth book. I'm looking at it. It seems like you gave everybody everything they need to know without even contacting you. The book is called U.S. Taxes for Worldly Americans, the Traveling Expats. I said experts before, and I apologize. Expats Guide to Living, Working, and Staying Tax Compliant Abroad. Is there a website for people to get in touch with you, or a social media channel that you like to post on?
Oh, yes, of course. My website is 1040 abroad, 1040abroad.com. You'll have a contact form on the homepage. You can use it, and my assistant will get back to you within 24 hours. We are mostly active on Facebook, even though we also have a Twitter account. On both of these channels, My username is 1040 abroad.
And I like how, I don't know when your first one came out, but you just updated it for 2024. I would assume every year there's some little adjustment that needs to be made, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yep. So, guys, this is the newest one. It's updated for 2024. It's on Amazon. And yeah, the website again, I just want to make sure I get that in there. What's the website?
1040, like the tax return, 1040, abroad,
Abroad.
ABROAD, like moving overseas, right?
Oh, that's easy to remember. Okay, good deal. So,
Yes.
guys, look him up. He's easy to find. Olivier Wagner, and it's definitely crushing on Amazon. I always admire anybody who does really well with reviews on Amazon. So you're doing really well with it, and it's been an honor to talk with you. I have not had we this is episode I think 180 somewhere in there, and we have not had anybody talk about this type of subject. So you're the first one helping individuals travel abroad and do it the right way. So it's been an honor to talk with you, sir.
Great. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm telling you guys, the nomadic lifestyle, it's amazing to build a virtual business because you can have the freedom that you never thought was possible. So check out this book and also just fall in love with the entrepreneur pathway because it will create freedom in every aspect of your life now and forever. And remember, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life right